Okay, guys. So my name is Aslam Taurai, and what I'm going to be speaking about today is the whole this was some of being a property investor. I'm going to get into that. And this whole idea of property deal making was something I'd never heard the concept before. It's I'd like to think that it's something I've recently coined. In fact, I was able to register an internet domain, the propertydealmaker.com. So it wasn't taken, which means nobody was interested in that terminology. But I grabbed it because of something I'm working on, which I'll also speak about a little bit later. But my view on property and how I look at things, it's changed. So as Taurai said, we come from a very similar journey. My journey was just a little bit different to his, and my experiences were a little bit different. So I had to make adjustments along the way. But without further ado, I want to make sure that I stick to the time frames. So it's now 20 past 10. So I think I've got about 40 minutes odd. Okay, 40 minutes. So let's get into it. So I want to start it off firstly with a quote. I love quotes, right? Because I'm someone who's all about taking action. People are always contemplating and procrastinating. And this quote really resonates deeply. It says, the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise never have occurred. A whole stream of events, issue from the decision, and decision is in a capital, obviously, raising in one's favor all manner of incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man would have believed would have come his way. And this is so true when I look at my journey. If I have never taken action, and you're going to see this play out in this entire presentation that I'm going to do, it's like that at one point I made a decision to do something, and because of that decision, it moved me to something else, and it moved me to something else. So the longer you procrastinate, the longer it takes for the universe to bring into your world the things that you want. Okay, so that law of attraction is very, very strong, and belief is everything. So what you believe, okay, they say what you believe you can achieve. I have a belief that what you believe is what you take action on, because when you don't believe in something, you'll never take action on it. So I'm very big on mindset, even though I'm not going to go into it a lot. I know someone has covered that in one of the previous videos, but mindset is everything. So who is Aslam? I'm going to get into that there. So I'm the founder of aslamtaurai.com and the 9 to 5 millionaire. Okay, I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I see myself as, because I'm involved in multiple things now, not just real estate. And I've been in real estate for 17 years. I've been investing in the JSE for about 15 years. I'm a past franchise owner, which I'll touch on in a little bit. I was a commercial property banker at 3 of the big banks in South Africa for about 12 years. And I'm a fitness and travel fanatic. As you will see there, I seem to always be on a beach whenever I end up on a holiday. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. So now it's about you, right? What do you aspire to, right? So are you aspiring to enter the commercial property sector? Okay, because you see, with commercial property, it's very different from residential. But I also see residential as commercial property, with the blocks of flats and residential developments, which I'm not really touching on in this video, but those we used to also define them as part of commercial property. Okay, so when I say commercial property, do you want to own blocks of flats? Do you want to own shopping centers? Do you want to own industrial? What do you want to get involved in? And what is your idea of being involved in the commercial property sector? Do you want to be an agent? Do you want to be an investor? Do you want to be a developer? Because they're all different. Okay, and that's why I could never figure out where I fit in, because it's like I didn't want to be any of those. Okay, maybe an investor to a certain degree, but I tried being a developer, and that wasn't working out well, because you need to have access to a lot of funds if you're going to do development. Not necessarily that you need the money, but you need to have access to the funds, right? So my hope is that my story today will inspire you to take action, because like I say, I'm all about taking action. It's no use watching all these videos and not doing anything about it. So what are some of the myths about commercial property? Okay, it's too expensive. So that's what some people say, right? That commercial property is too expensive. I can't get into it. because I need lots of my own money. That's point two. It's difficult to raise money from the bank. And I was one of those bankers. If you had come to me and you asked me for money, I would have told you, listen, the criteria is 60 to 70% debt. You need to put in 30 to 40% of equity, and that's how we roll, and that's how we do the deals. And for a lot of people, that's where they get stumped, and they're like, well, I don't think I'll ever be able to do anything. You know, it's hard to find good deals. It's very risky. And there are no good deals from estate agents. You know, and the last one, I used to read a lot in books that, you know, you don't find the best deals from estate agents. You need to be getting it from like attorneys. And that's true to a certain degree. But, you know, with both of the deals that I've done up to now in the commercial space, actually paid out deals where I've actually made some money, I got them through estate agents. But you see, estate agents link you up to property players, and you can, then it's up to you to develop those relationships. Okay. Now, I believed all these myths when I was a banker, because when you work in the corporate world, you must understand that what you surround yourself with, you become. So I became like, and you'll see when I went into commercial property finance, I went in with an entrepreneurial mindset because of an experience I'm going to share with you today. But I very quickly got drowned into the thinking that I can never get into commercial property myself because of all these limitations and myths that we are led to believe we need to get into the industry. Okay. So this is about my journey to the first commercial property deal. So the entire presentation culminates into that deal. I don't get into like a whole lot of detail about it. You know, I'm going to be speaking about something later on in the video, which is where you can get a lot of information about how I went about doing that deal. But I'm going to be leading you on the journey, which is more important, so that you know what it was like for me. I'm giving you fair warning. Okay, some people might not like the time frame of this journey of mine. It took a long time, and like I said to Taurai at the beginning, there was no mentorship, there was no social media, there was no way of getting the information that I needed. So it was a lot of trial and error. And some of you, your mindset might be challenged in how you view being a property player. Okay. So if you're thinking that the only way to get involved in property is you need to be an investor or you need to be a developer, I'm because of some things that I've learned and experiences I've had, I'm gonna maybe challenge some of those belief systems. And remember, when a belief system is challenged, we tend to reject it because we've never heard it before, and it's not something we used to. But that's how we learn. So I'm going to ask you to keep an open mind with some of the things that I'm going to talk about. Okay. There is no theoretically sound process in my story, right? So I didn't have a textbook or anyone guiding me. So it was a lot of trial and error. So if there are like academically inclined people on the call, and you went to a course and the course said you need to do it in XYZ process, there was none of that for me, right? I was just taking action. I was ignorance on fire and figuring things out as I went along. Okay, so there were no textbook or course could have prepared me anyway for the things that I found out in terms of how the real world worked. Okay, and you got to take action and figure it out. And it goes back to that quote, right? Where providence moves to when you make a decision and you take action, things start happening around you. I'm actually starting to write a book. I've put together a short ebook already with this whole idea that when you take action, all these things start to happen. That's the whole philosophy that this book is going to be based on. Okay. So firstly, I did not know anything practical about investing or business or property for that matter, even though I had gone and done a degree, a BCom, and I did an honors degree. I mean, it was all theory. I didn't really know about practical business and property and any of that. And my journey started when I got my first job at a company called CGIC. It was Credit Guarantee. And that's where something started for me, because there was a general manager that started teaching us some of the basics of investing on the stock market. So he put us into what he called the learning company or something, the learning something. He gave it some name. And what he did was he said he wanted us to go out and create demo or dummy stock market portfolio. So we have to come home and find shares that we're putting into our portfolio, and we must say what we bought it for and how we did the analysis. And that first kind of challenged me because I didn't even know how to open a stock brokerage account. And and then you must understand, I studied finance, right? I just swatted. It shows you, does education really teach us what we need to know? Okay, because how can you get out of a finance degree and you're still relatively clueless about how the stock market operates? Okay, so environment is key. Then I found this book, right? Someone gave me this book in this learning organization. He called it the learning organization. That's the name he used. But there was a lady that brought this book to one of our sessions, and I asked her, can I read this book? And this was the book I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And this was a paradigm shift for me completely, because if you've read the book, and let me know if you have, but if you've read the book, I mean, he challenges this whole idea of getting a formal education. And here I was still pursuing my formal education, and this guy is telling me that it's not that important. And I was like, but now you're challenging my belief system. And this is why I said, when your belief system is challenged, you've got a decision to make. Either you're going to accept it or you're going to have an open mind. I decided to have an open mind. And the learning point here is you need to get into the right circles. You see, without, I don't know, this was just how a life unfolded for me. But if I was not in this company, if I was not in this man's division, I could have been in any other division in this company. I would have never learned some of these things. Okay, and I had student debt, which made it impossible to invest. So my belief system, once again, was being challenged. But nonetheless, I picked up some of his other books later on, like about 1 or 2 years later. I read Real Estate Riches. Then I read Cash Flow Quadrants. I think the order is irrelevant, but somewhere along the line, I read these books. And I got these ideas about, investing in property. So then around 2003, 2004, the journey started, and I bought my first property in this complex. It was still being built, so I bought it off plan. And my unit, I don't know if you can see but that was my unit right there. I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer. That was my unit right there, my very first unit. Okay, and I bought it off plan without seeing it. I paid about 285,000 Rand for this unit, and it was ready in 2004. And I rented it out, and I kept it for many, many years. It was actually my best performing asset. Then we moved on, and this second one here, I didn't actually buy this unit. But once again, this is where I'm saying taking action is important. But I went to this particular complex, and I was going to buy a unit. Now, guys, the unit was selling for, the owner was asking for 60,000 Rand. Okay, it was a 1-bedroom massive unit for 60,000 Rand. And I knew I could rent it out at the time for 1,500 Rand. And I didn't, but the bank wasn't prepared to give me 100% deposit. I won't lie to you, I didn't even have. They wanted to give me, I think it was 70 or 80%, and I didn't, because it was what was zoned as a red light district. So they didn't fund 100% in these areas, and I needed to put down a deposit, and I didn't even have like the 4,000 or 5,000 Rand to put down as a deposit at the time. But the agent gave me an idea of how I can buy this property. Until today, I regret not taking him on. It was basically a contracting trick, that I could have I could have executed, and it's still one of the regrets that I hold, but it's a learning experience, and that's why these days I always take action. Okay, then I bought this unit over here. It's actually the unit right in front there at Turf Lodge. That was 06. Then I got another unit in this complex here. Then I got a unit out in Braamfontein in this complex, which is also something that was being newly developed at the time, in Jordan Street, right opposite the Civic Center. Then I bought a unit at the Sheriff's Auction at this complex out in the south. And there were a few other properties we bought. Couldn't really fit all of them here, but this was kind of the journey between 2004, 2009. I was accumulating all these single residential units, and I ended up with about 10 properties that I was renting out. Okay. And in this period, around 2004, 2005, I found a piece of property. Now, you'll see here where the red location pin is. There was a vacant piece of land here in this area. Okay. And this area was developing. And on the other side of the highway here, you'll see that there's a squatter camp. But this squatter camp now is developing into, as I speak to you here, this squatter camp has developed into a township. So at the time already, I thought that it would be brilliant if I could put a shopping center like somewhere in this vicinity. And this piece of land was already zoned for a shopping center. Now, understand, I knew nothing, or I knew absolutely nothing about, owning a shopping center or how to set up one or anything like that. But I had this brilliant idea that I'm going to build a shopping center. I think I was about 25 years old or 26 years old. And yeah, the idea was, let's build a shopping center. And how did I take action, right? All about taking action. I called the banks. I was not working in commercial property at the time. I was doing something totally different in the bank. And I asked them what they needed if I want to build a shopping center. And they first asked me, is your land zoned for retail? I said, yes, it was. They asked me, do you have a market research study? I didn't have one, but I checked the yellow pages and I called someone. And guess what? Out of just sheer taking action, remember the first quote. Okay, when you do something and make a decision, the universe moves too. And there was this lady that was running a market research company, and she didn't know me from Adam. She didn't know me at all. And long story short, she actually did this market research report for me. It would have cost me 50,000 Rand, and she did it for me for free. Okay, then they started asking me, who's your anchor tenant? And I'm like, what the freaking hell is an anchor tenant now? And they told me, no, you need to get like a ShopRite or a Spar or something, right? So I went to Spar at the time, and I was surprised. I was this 25-year-old, and Spar came out to look at my proposed piece of land, and they asked me if I have a proposed layout for the center, and I didn't have one. So guess what? Once again, became resourceful. I knew a friend of mine who was studying architecture at Wits. So I called him up and I said, dude, listen, I've got this great idea. And I took him to the site, and he put together like a draft plan. And Spar actually gave me a letter of intent on this property, right? The deal ended up not going through because I lacked an important skill, which was how to secure the property, okay, which I now know how to do, but I didn't know it at the time. Okay, and at this point, I'm making it a learning point for you if you want to get into, for example, retail. Now, I don't, with COVID at the moment, I don't know if you want to be a retail property owner because they're bleeding right now. But it's a good learning point because I don't think retail is going to disappear. I think it's just going to become more strategic in terms of the retail that remains, to exist. Because as long as people are still buying houses and communities are coming up, there will always be a need in some form or the other for a retail center. So this information will serve you, going into this new world that we're going to find ourselves getting into. I don't recommend really going into the new development route to build a shopping center from scratch because it's trying and it's testing and it takes a long time. It can take you like 3-4 years to get a center up, especially if your land is not zoned. It's a different story if your land is zoned and all the rights are in place for retail and everything's perfect. Yeah, then I would say then maybe look at it. Okay. If I do get into a development, I'm going to do it as a deal maker, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Is the land zoned? Very important. So a lot of people sometimes come to me online, and because they know I come from a commercial background, they're always asking me, "Listen, can you help me? I've got this piece of land that I wanna develop." Okay, so someone is asking me, "What is a red light district?" So I don't know if they currently exist, but sometimes banks call certain areas red light districts. Like for example, at the moment, areas like Rosettenville are once again potentially moving to becoming red light districts. And the reason being, when things like property hijackings tend to become prevalent in a certain area, banks become resistant to fund in those areas. And that's when they start calling it red light districts, because they're just saying, we won't fund you if you're buying property in this particular area. So that's what I mean by a red light district, right? Are there services on the land? A very important question to ask. We're sitting in a situation where our service provider, like Eskom, is not able to supply enough electricity. So if you're looking at pieces of land that aren't serviced, how long is it going to take before you can get services? Things to consider. And if all that is in place, do you have a market study? Now, one of my mentors, who's a retail developer, and I'm going to speak about him in a little bit, always tells me that, when you get into property development, you must understand there's something called salt money. And I asked him, what is salt money? And he said, salt money is money you throw in the air and it disappears like salt. That's salt money. And he said, you got to spend salt money on some of these things like market studies. It can cost you 75,000 Rand to do a market study. And there's no guarantee that the market study is going to come out favorable. Okay. So you have to spend that money anyway. Okay. And if you do get a market study done, is the recommendation in that market study favorable? So there are certain companies that specialize in doing these market studies. They do these demographic studies and they'll tell you what the retail potential is. That's basically what this lady did for me, where she did it for no money down, right? So sometimes you can get people to do that, but it's not often. You need a relationship there. Okay, then you need a preliminary design of the center that you want if the market study is stacking up. So you're going to go to an architect and get a design. Then you need to secure your anchor tenant, because everyone else follows the anchor tenant. So if you're getting a ShopRite or a Pick n Pay or a Spar into your center, and they commit that they're ready to come into the center because they feel the market study is justified, understand the retail anchors normally would do their own market study as well. So even though you give them one, they normally do one of their own to see if they also feel that area is favorable for them to invest in. So what they would normally do is they would give you a letter of intent if they are happy with what you're presenting to them. And that's something that you can normally bank with a lot of potential tenants that could come into your center. You can say, well, Spy is ready to come in. Are you willing to come in? And some other shops, like we in South Africa, obviously most people here will be in South Africa. But for example, wherever ShopRite opens, Pep will usually say we'll follow. Okay, so it's like everyone follows the anchor. They'll tell you if Game is in, then I'm in, because certain retail outlets they basically match each other, right? So also you'll see wherever ShopRite goes, Pep goes. Wherever Pep is, you'll find Capitec will normally open. So these guys have a kind of a formula in these centers, right? I would recommend existing retail instead. It is easier to get into, but you still need to be a deal maker. But now, how do you do it with no money down? Okay, because this is the question. Sometimes we only think about owning the property. Okay, you don't need to own a property to make money from a property. And that was a big mind shift for me, because all I wanted to be was an investor. But as an investor, the bank is going to tell you you need to put down a 30 or 40% deposit, which most people don't have. And if you're buying a shopping center, if it's a big one, 20, 30, 50, 100 million rand is not uncommon. So I would recommend you secure the property by contract. Okay, you need to learn how to secure properties by contract, renegotiate. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at an industrial property. So while people are like shuffling around, I'm putting in these offers on some industrial property. And I offered, like, they wanted 40 million on the one, and I offered them 20 million. I went in bullish, half price, you know, because I'm bargain hunting. I don't know who the desperate sellers are. And I would renegotiate lease terms, secure new tenants, and then find investors and buyers. I don't need to own the property. I can sell it on to someone else and make a profit, okay, if I renegotiate well. So you, like I say, you don't need to own these things, right? The next part of the journey was, okay, when that first retail center thing failed for me, I decided I need more information. And because there was no social media and there were no mentors and you know, all the restrictions that I mentioned, I figured that the best way for me is I need to find a job in the bank where I'm working, and I need to go and work in their commercial property finance division. Okay, so I decided I'm going to get into commercial property. And I spent 12 years in deal structuring. I'm not going to speak too much about the funding part here, only because you can't control how a bank or banks view deals and whether they're going to ask you for a 60% deposit or a 50% deposit or a 30% deposit. You can only control your deal-making skill to make the deal appetizing to banks and potential investors. So focus on what you can control. Okay, this is why I came up with this thing, and I said, you know, what am I? Am I a property investor, or what am I, right? And I pride myself now as a property deal maker, right? So I took on franchising with the goal of getting more cash flow, because I didn't have the answers. And from the books I was reading, I saw, and from the things I was seeing in the commercial space, most property owners that I was meeting had what we call a cash cow. So you would find a guy maybe owns a packaging company, and he's making all this profit from his packaging company. And then he takes the profit from the packaging company and he invests it in property, and that generates for him a passive income. So I thought, okay, I can't open a packaging company. I need something that can be passive while I'm still doing a full-time job. So I need to get into franchising, because I was sold on the idea that franchising is like a passive income sort of thing. A big mistake, okay? So that ended up being a hard lesson, which I'm not going to get into here. But anyway, by 2011, the master plan was as follows. I'm going to get 5 fast food franchise outlets. I opened 2 of them by 2013. Okay. And I am going to get cash. Okay. And I'm going to turn that cash into passive income by buying a lot of these types of properties, which was blocks of flats. Okay. I was going to get lots of these, and that would ultimately take me to living my dream life, which was sitting on the beach more often, right? Because ultimately that's what we're looking for, right? Sometimes we think that what we're looking for, okay, we think that what we're looking for is the property. You're not looking for the property. You're looking for what the property can actually give you, which is the lifestyle. So what was my plan? My plan was to become a property investor. I wanted to be in property investment, okay? Then there was a change of direction. I met someone eventually along in my journey, and this is why my whole view on property has changed over the years and how I choose to be involved in it. Okay, I met someone who had many of these types of things. Okay, many blocks of flats, over 100 of them. And he basically had everything that I was aspiring to at the time, because I felt this is what I want. But then when I looked at him, I didn't see the lifestyle that I was after. I didn't see this guy going onto the beach several times a year. He was only going on holiday like once a year, because he had all the, I was always, when I was sitting in meetings with him, I couldn't understand, why is this guy always so busy? Like, if I try to set up a meeting with him, he's always busy, and I have other deals I want to discuss with him. Why? It's because he had all these buildings that he owned, and he was either sorting things out with the city council, or he was battling with tenants that weren't paying, or sometimes some of his buildings were being hijacked and he had to get it unhijacked, and it was just a mess. Okay, and I thought, okay, I need to rethink what it is that I want. I don't know if you've read this book. So somewhere along the line, I read this book. It's by our all-time favorite US president now, Mr. Donald Trump. But he read this, he wrote this book many, many, many years ago. And in this book, he basically explains a few things. And one of the things he explains was his dad owned many of these types of properties, the big blocks of flats in the lower end areas, like your CBD of Joburg and, you know, that sort of thing. And he basically said he used to go and collect rentals for his father with a bodyguard, and they would knock on the door of some of these places where people hadn't paid rent. And then after knocking on the door, they would step back and stand to the side of the door in case someone like shot through the door. Right. And when I read that, I was like, man, okay, maybe he's being a bit dramatic, but it can happen. It depends, you know. So he decided that he had the end in mind, and he decided to go for high-end property development. So he went and did things like Trump Tower, and it was all things that were targeted at the high-end property owner. So, or the high-end property, you know, renter. So if he was going to be renting property out, it's like he's nice renting property out to the high-end or high-caliber person, right? Instead of the lower-end person where he felt that there was a lot of risk. So this was a lesson for me. I've got to think with the end in mind. What sort of life do I want to live, and how am I going to achieve that life? So you've got to start with the end in mind. A few months ago, I did a course on NLP, and the first thing they teach you about goal setting is, don't think where you are now. Think about where you want to be, and then work backwards in terms of how you want your life to look and how you're going to get to where you want to be. Okay. Then I saw a mentor's game plan. Now, earlier I spoke about, you know, shopping centers. And this is one of the things I'm most grateful for, you know, working in the job that I did as a commercial property deal maker. I got to meet a lot of people, and I got to see a lot of different types of property investors. I got to see the guys that own 100 and 200 blocks of flats and buildings, forget flats, like thousands of units, you know. I got to see guys that own shopping centers and student accommodation and industrial and filling stations and all these different types of properties. But this one particular person sort of had what I was looking for. And I don't follow his game plan, but I took a lesson from his game plan. So he builds shopping centers. Okay. He builds shopping centers from scratch. Now understand, this takes a long time. It takes a certain skill set, but he didn't know how to build shopping centers when he started. But he eventually became very good at it. And now what they do is They build like 1 to 2 shopping centers every 2 to 3 years. So, I mean, at any given time, they only ever working on one deal. So already, can you imagine the lower stress levels? Whereas my other business partner and mentor had all these buildings, 100 and 200 and 1,000 buildings or whatever. These guys were working on just 1 or 2 buildings at a time. Okay. And then what they would do is they would sell it before it even is fully built. They would sell it to very large investors that wanted to own these things. So maybe they built it for, let's call it 100 million rand, and then they would sell it for 120 million rand, which gives them what? It gives them cash. Okay. And then what they do with their cash is they put their cash into passive income investments like investment funds where they earn 10 to 12% a year. They put it into the investments where like REITs or real estate investment trusts where they earn dividends. Okay, they put it in bank accounts where they earn interest. Now, obviously, I know bank accounts only earn you 6 to 7%, but there's no physical property ownership in this model. Now, I asked this guy, like, why do you do this? I've been financing you for years, and I see you building shopping centers, but I've never seen you keep any of these shopping centers. Why is that? And he told me, well, I want a lifestyle. I want to be on the beach more often, okay, which he is more often than my other mentor. And he's a big Liverpool fan, and he says, I want to go and see Liverpool play whenever I want. So he saw them, win the Champions League live last year. He flies out whenever he wants, and he always flies first class. And on top of that, he bought himself a Bentley because he felt he deserves it, right? Now, I was seeing something that the other guy didn't have. Now, this year, that's why I put it in red. This takes longer to execute because these deals can take you a long time to do. Retail center developments can take 3 years from start to finish. And there needs to be a lot of cash outlaid at the beginning. Okay, so this is how my deal making journey started. I then decided, okay, I am not going to build property. I'm not going to invest in property. And we found this very nice looking building. And I found, guys, this is why I say you don't always believe when people tell you estate agents don't have good deals. I found this on freaking privateproperty.co.za and on property24.com. And it was listed at like 9 million rand. And I just looked at it and I looked at the area that it was in and I was like, I think this year needs to be looked at. And I did some investigation. And I went and looked at the property, and what I found was shocking. I mean, even though it was in a good location, there was like a little heel-brow sort of situation going on in the building. It was partially hijacked. And, I then partnered with the right people, to execute this deal. If you look at the bottom there, you'll see I'm doing a full case study in a three-part video series, which you can get onto if you want. It's not going to happen immediately. It'll happen in about 1 month to about 45 days. I'm still busy working on it. But the website is up and running, and people who are interested in getting notified can get onto that. It's at the 9to5millionaire.com/the property deal maker. Okay. But eventually what we did to this building was we found a buyer for the building. So we contracted the building. Okay. We emptied the building. We cleaned the building. And then we found a buyer. I went, and this year, I mean, the journey could have been much, much, much shorter. But I'm going to basically explain a lot of the mistakes we made, when I get in the case study video series that I'm doing. But eventually that guy came in and they took this building from us without us taking transfer of the building. Okay. And we did a seamless transaction back to back. Got all the banks to speak to each other that were involved. And then eventually these guys started renovating this building. We were not involved in the renovation, but we, that's why I see it as I negotiated and I was a deal maker in the transition of this building from a dog into what you see it. This was like the middle where they were still busy. And that's what it looks like now. The guys are trading. Maybe some of you know the building if you're in this area. But this is where the journey started. And, what I learned here was profound. Okay. Because there was a mind shift for me from being a property investor only. So I had a property investor mindset because of all the books I had read. Okay. So I only thought about doing deals in property as an investor. Now I think like a property deal maker. That's what I call myself. And one of the biggest realizations was I don't need to always own it to profit from it. Because sometimes we're too obsessed with how am I going to own this? I want to have these. listen, what are you after, right? Are you after the lifestyle, or are you after what the property can give you? Okay, because I wasn't chasing the property ownership. This was the realization to me. I wasn't chasing the property ownership. I was chasing the lifestyle I believe the properties would give me. And I now realize I can have the lifestyle without owning the properties. Okay, that was a big realization for me. Okay, if this is a mind shift for you, drop a comment below. I'd like to see those comments if you feel that this year is a mind shift, because for me it was when I met someone that taught me this, and when I saw how he thought about doing property deals, it changed my paradigm on how I view deals. So I mean, right now I'm assisting a very large company. They're looking at a 500 million rand transaction. Okay, and they asked me to assist them the other day. And when I got onto the call, the only thing they were thinking about was, we've won this tender, we can put up these buildings, but if we get investors on, the investor will only make money in year 10. And I asked them a simple question, and I said, why would an investor only want to make money in year 10? Why don't you develop this property and sell it to someone who's willing to buy it? And that for them was a paradigm shift. I understand this was a group that has already listed a property fund on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And when I told them that, they were like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. We didn't think about that. So you see, how are you looking at your property deals? Are you only looking at it from an investment perspective, or are you taking a property deal maker perspective? So I used to be asked this big question, Aslam, what do you do? Okay. And I didn't really know what I did, especially in property, because I do a lot of things besides property. But my biggest strength has always been bringing people together, bringing parties together. When I was a teenager, I was the guy getting all the oaks together, all the guys together to go to the nightclub, right? And when we were not doing the nightclubs, we were doing the matinee clubs, right? The afternoon clubs. And I would like 15 guys in a taxi, and I'm like, we're going to the club. If someone needed something and they didn't know where to find it, Aslam was the guy that could find it for them. I was always this facilitator. It was always my strength. I do it naturally. So I learned that I need to play to my strengths. And my strengths, I'm not a developer. I can't lay a brick to save my life. Okay, so if I get into development, a builder or contractor will steal me blind. Okay, I'm not an investor, even though I do play in it. I'm not an investor. And when I was an investor, I wasn't really enjoying it, because I had a lot of stress when I had those 10 individual residential units. I'm not saying don't get into it. I'm saying that was my journey. Everyone's journey is different, but this was my journey. And I'm not an estate agent, because I don't even have a license. So what I do is not estate agency work either. And then I started asking myself, but geez, Aslam, what on earth are you then? What do you do? And I spoke to someone on the phone the one day, and what she told me was, she said, Aslam, you're a deal maker, right? And that's what she told me. She said, you are a deal maker. That's your strength. And that's what I am. I'm a property deal maker. And hence, that's how I now categorize myself, okay? I'm not limited. Some people limit themselves, and I wouldn't say it's limit. It's good to specialize. So my retail developer friend only gets involved in shopping center developments. It's all he does, okay? But for some reason, I can spot opportunities in the industrial. I can spot opportunities if it's to do with hospitality, with student accommodation, in retail, with filling stations, which I'm going to speak about in a moment. So I've got this vast array of knowledge because of my background. So for me, I find it very hard to focus on only one area in the property industry. So why a property deal maker mindset is beneficial. Okay, the first thing is you don't need to own it to profit from it. That's the first mindset that you start to realize. And with the COVID situation that we're in right now, I think back to 2008, one thing is guaranteed, it's going to happen whether you and I like it or not. Banks will tighten their lending criteria as they did in the 2008-09 recession. It's going to be harder for new property investors to enter the market. Now, given there are certain other vendors that can give finance, but in general, remember, even those vendors get a lot of their money from the major banks. I used to sit in these credit committees, and I was shocked to see that a bank who I thought was a bank, even though they were a smaller bank, was getting money from the big bank. All right. It's like, I'll give you an example. Al Baraka Bank was lending money from freaking FNB. Like, it was crazy. And I was like, but these guys are getting money from the big banks. So whatever criteria the big banks have is going to filter through to these guys. Okay, so you can't control that. Okay, so things like experience in the property sector is going to prevail in the credit committees. net asset value, because banks want to fund guys that have net asset values that are big. Okay, they want higher debt cover ratios when things aren't looking good in the economy. They want to give lower loan to values. They want more security. We can't control this. It's inevitable. The only thing you control is you need to control your thinking as a deal maker. Because as a deal maker, we don't think only how do I own this, we think how do I solution the problem. Okay, who needs these assets and will pay me the solution I'm going to give them, pay me for the solution I'm going to give them. And I'll give you an example, right? I know some large investors that have a massive appetite for large residential units, and if I can find those things in bulk, they'll pay me handsomely for solutioning their need for those rental units. Okay, so I'm thinking on that bigger scale. Like if Taurai had to come to me and he said to me, Aslam, I've got a portfolio of 1,000 tenants, and this is what the portfolio looks like. I found it from with someone. I'll be like, I can solution this deal because I can structure a deal where I can get buyers to take up all these units, and we then get the cash, and we can put that cash into whatever we want. If property is still what you want to do, but now my goal is I want to take money, put it into passive investments like investment funds, earn my 10 to 12% a year, and I still get to sit on the beach, and I don't need to worry about tenants not paying. One of my clients who's got a lot of tenants said only 20 to 30% of his tenants have paid him this month. So it stands to reason, right? So current deals, I'm going to go through this very quickly. So I show these figures only to demonstrate. This is not to boast or anything like that. To get the point across, I have to show you these. So I get involved in filling stations now, and it's very simple. Okay, it's one of the only property classes I'm choosing to become an investor in, not as a retail operator. I don't want to run them. I want to get involved in owning the actual asset. Why? Because fuel companies always pay the rent. Okay, fuel isn't going anywhere, and even when vehicles move to electric vehicles, they still need to charge them up somewhere. And you're basically going to see probably a lot of these fuel stations converting. It's happening overseas already, where filling stations are converting from just being fossil fuel based to basically doing electrical fuels or electric charging stations as well. So they'll just convert a lot of these things or add charging stations to them. They ain't going anywhere, right? We've still got a long time before that. So for me, I rather want to rent out property to a fuel company, sign a 10, 15-year lease. That's the only sort of property I really want to own. Or I don't mind owning industrial as well, because I think industrial is where there's a lot of opportunity now. Okay. So we already closed our first deal like this. We're just a bit stuck with COVID because we can't get out, but we got 100% bank funding, all because of the deal making. Okay, and in there I get to hold a 20% share in the deal. I don't need to own big shares in these things because I'm not putting any money down. So why ask for big share, right? Because I didn't put any money down into the deal. The second deal is a 50 million rand deal. I've been in negotiation with this deal. Like I said, it takes a long time. I've been negotiating this deal for over 2 years now. And if the deal making is successful, of the 50 million, only 22 million will be needed from the bank, and 10 million we will bank for ourselves in the deal. That's if the deal making is successful. It hasn't been done. So please don't go post on social media that Aslam just made 10 million. It hasn't happened. I'm just giving you an example of what's possible if the deal making and what you have in your mind is, if your mind is vibrating at that level of being a deal maker, you start thinking about these solutions. So my method isn't easy, okay? And they take time to close, and it can hurt your cash flow position. I'm warning you about that, okay? But I'm just saying be open-minded in terms of how you can do deals. 7 points to consider. Start with the end in mind always, okay? If you were the best property sort of player you can imagine, and you had everything you wanted as a property player, what would your life look like? Okay, where would you be? Would you be sitting on the beach? Okay, and what would you own in property? Okay, because what I found was that I could never sit on the beach if I was the owner of 100 different units or 1,000 different units, because I wasn't seeing other guys sitting on the beach. They had to manage these portfolios because it became very intensive in terms of management, right? So get your belief level up by reading and learning all the time. Get a coach, a mentor, or an experienced partner. I don't really have a coach or mentor per se. I learn from my partners. And how do I get my partners to mentor me? I take them deals, okay? I find deals that I think can work. I look at what I can solution, and then I take it to someone, because you must understand the deal trumps the cash. You don't need money to do a deal. You need a good deal to get the money, okay? So if the deal is attractive, investors are going to line up to do your deal. right? Get around the right people, think bigger, network, and always remember you don't need to own it to profit from it. Think like a property deal maker, okay? Even if you want to become an investor, because the moment you only think like an investor, I can think back to many deals. If I had put my deal maker cap on, I would have probably did a deal on it. But I thought like an investor, how can I own it? And when I couldn't find a solution to owning it, I let the deal slide. Okay. So here's your homework, guys. I've got some homework for you. And I want to start off the homework by this, right? Okay. A great ice hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, once said, he was once asked, what makes a great hockey player? And a great hockey player plays where the puck is. A good hockey player plays where the puck is. But a great hockey player plays where the puck is going to be. And we are in a transition right now, okay? In the early 2000s, the black middle class was emerging as the economic force. One of the best opportunities in commercial property at the time was the growing demand for township retail developments. And this is where that one mentor or one client of mine decided to play. He decided to build township retail centers, and he made a lot of money from it. That's why he was able to buy himself a Bentley and freaking fly first class and go to all the Liverpool games if he wants. Why? Because he took advantage of what was happening in the economy at the time. Okay. I want you to brainstorm 5 ideas or projections of where you believe the opportunities might emerge in the commercial property space. And I'm going to give you some ideas to jog your memory here. Okay. So here's the fact. Even when COVID-19 passes, it's going to be far from business as usual. Okay. More than 25 people globally are expected to lose their jobs. Okay. So will there be more new small businesses? Okay. Will these have a commercial or real estate need? Okay. And I'm asking questions. I'm not giving you answers. I'm just getting your mind, because sometimes the answer is always in a question. So I'm just prompting you, your mind, right? Will these have a commercial real estate need, these businesses? Or will a lot of these entrepreneurs mostly be online entrepreneurs? Okay. And if it's online entrepreneurs emerge, where will the need be for, will there be a need, for example, for larger residential accommodation? So will the guy need to now not live in a townhouse? Maybe he now needs to start renting houses, 3-4 bedroom houses, because he needs to have a study where he can work from. I'm just throwing out examples, right? I don't know. Okay. Banks will tighten up their lending criteria and credit policy. There will be a liquidity crisis. What are you foreseeing? So where are the opportunities going to come? Because if you just tell yourself, well, banks aren't lending money, so I can't do deals, then your mind will say, well, you're right, you can't do deals, okay? Because what did Henry Ford says, the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. So you need to be thinking already that this is going to happen, but how am I going to profit from it? And I've given you an answer, right? You don't need to own it to profit from it, right? And normally when you go to the bank, it's like you want to become the owner. That's why you're going to the bank. Deal making happens before you get to the bank, okay? It is expected that only major retail malls will survive and thrive as consumers begin to move toward online shopping. Will there then be a downward demand for retail property? I want you to ask yourself this. So is retail property going to be where the opportunities materialize? Okay, most millennials can't afford property, okay? Will there be an increased demand then for rentals? Okay, should you be getting involved in the rental space, right? Will there be higher demand in the industrial space, which I believe there will be because of this move towards, because remember, when people move online, even though they're not shopping anymore, all the stock needs to be stored somewhere, and distribution centers need to be opened in different parts of different regions to get things to people faster, right? Because like on Amazon, I mean, you buy things and it comes like a week later and stuff. We're still very behind. I mean, in America, guys can get things like overnight, like 1 day, 2 days, and it's there. Eventually we'll get to that, but to get to that, the logistics need to work, and to make the logistics work, industrial is going to be a space where one needs to be playing in. That's just my view. Office demand is very slow at the moment. Okay, it is slow. So will there be more vacant offices? And with these vacant offices, I know, for example, one particular suburb in Johannesburg where there are tons of residential office buildings standing vacant.
So Aslam, you've given in a whole lot of information, man. But I think what you have actually done is just to open up people's minds in terms of what is the possibility, right? And the possibilities is endless. There's so many ways to do it. So many ways. And I became this person that now buys a whole lot of properties in different spaces by just being a deal maker, right? The name means the same, but people call them differently, the terminology. You know, in the States, they call them the deal maker. In the UK, they call them sourcing agents. But the whole thing is that you are in control of the deal. That's what you are, right? And I'm always telling people that if you're in control of the deal, you're in control of everything, because you're the kingpin. That's what you are. You know, if we're talking hardcore, you are the pimp. You decide what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I want us to jump back into a lot of things, man. Let's do this. I've got lots of questions that I need to ask you. Yeah, and some of these questions are not, they are selfish questions. You know, me and you, we haven't chatted in a minute, but some of them I'm just looking to see, you know, whether we have any questions from the guys post what we have shared earlier on. So Google says, I know this is sourcing deals. Yes, you're very right. Deal making, that's what it is. I think this is Pochana Enterprise. It says he's a machine. Yeah, he's my boy. Okay, the presenter is on fire indeed. This is the thing, right, Aslam? Me and you, we can present being on fire like this. You have lost some money in the past. I've lost some money. You are one of those people that I see that you have defined your why as much as I have defined mine. But what I want to ask you, my first question is, and today I think we're just going to go over time. That's the reality. I think there's just so much to share. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just putting the disclaimer out there. So number one, you speak of this game now that you're playing as the deal maker. Me and you, we know that you are not fully employed now. You are focusing 100% on your deal making. I know that you've got a missus, you've got a child at home, you're a family man as much as I am. How do you put food on the table every day? Because these deals that you speak about take a long time. They take 12 pay slips, 24 pay slips, 36 pay slip for some of us who have been used to get that paycheck on the 20th of each month, 25th. How do you make it work?
You know, I think I'm going to answer that. That's a question as well that I asked one of my mentors. In fact, the guy who went into the whole the retail environment where he decided he's going to be building shopping centers in the townships. Now, obviously, those deals, forget 12 months, you're looking at 2-3 years for those deals to materialize. And I asked him, I said, listen, how much money did you have like when you got into this? And he said, as a partnership, we only had R1 million. Where he was fortunate was his wife had a good job that paid well, so she could help put food on the table. So I think that's one of the avenues people can look at, that, you know, when you want to go the entrepreneurial route, you've got to look at is there a partner firstly at home that can help sustain? And if that's the case, then, you know, you can move on. But it's a bit more difficult where both of you are now looking to venture into entrepreneurial endeavors. And for me, I'll be honest, that is a stressful thing. But this is why I don't only think about I don't see myself as only a property deal maker. That's what I do in the property space. But at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, and
sure,
I've always looked at where can I move to? You know, like what I said, Wayne Gretzky, where will the puck move to? Where is the ball moving? The best players in any game go where the ball is going to be moving. And for me, what I see is the ball is going to be moving into the online space. So I do a lot of other things now online that are slowly starting to yield some results. Not results where it puts food on the table every single day in terms of the property, but you see, this is why you've got to think differently. And because if you only think in the sense of property, I'm not an entrepreneur, we miss the space, because a lot of us have information. So I'll give you an idea. Right now, everyone is sitting with information in your head right now about property. So it's property related, okay? Yeah. But you can capitalize on that and monetize that knowledge that you have. You could become a coach, which would be a faster way of now creating an income. You know, so you create courses online and give some of your knowledge. Because remember, a third grader only wants to become like the fourth grader. He's not thinking about becoming a matriculant. Okay, he only wants to know how to get to the next step. So you and I might be third graders and fourth graders, but the people that are following us are people that are at second grade level and just want to learn how to get to third and fourth grade level. And it's for us to teach them. And you know that there is also an opportunity to put value into the market, give people value, okay? While at the same time also, because remember, we are all part, and I mean, we can't be shy for saying, I'm going to be looking at making money online. No, you've got to make money online because that's where the puck is moving.
Sure.
In terms of the deals itself, this is why I never recommend people get involved in land deals. I say stay away from land deals as much as possible, because land deals, if that thing is not zoned, if it's not hasn't got services, it's going to be very difficult to sell that property, no matter how well positioned it is. You know, one of the reasons, and I can't give all my secrets here, but one of the reasons I've decided, for example, to do the filling station deals is because they might take a few months to do, but once you close that deal, there's cash flow that can flow immediately. So I know some people call this deal sourcing. Some people are saying they see it as deal sourcing. To me, I don't call it deal sourcing, because with deal sourcing, I'm an order taker. I'm saying, here's a deal, you can take it.
For sure.
Before I say you can take the deal, Mr. Buyer, I'm looking at that deal and saying, how can I make that deal better? So I'm looking at an industrial property right now, and I know of property funds that would buy industrial property. But I can't just take it to them and give it to them and say, well, this tomato here is R1. I'm going to sell it to you for R2 and make R1. That's what deal sourcing is. What I'm doing in deal making is I'm saying, let's cut open this tomato and see how many seeds we can extract from it so we can get more tomatoes in the future.
That's it.
So that's the difference between being a sourcing agent and being a deal maker, because I am uplifting the deal before I give it to a buyer. I'm solutioning his need. Because if I look at how can I sell properties, for example, to listed funds. And if I want to sell property to listed funds, what do listed funds and pension funds want more than anything? They want sustainable cash flow, because they need to give people a return, and they need to pay pensioners a sustainable return, right? So that's what I want to give them. I just want to give them a property that has a sustainable return, and they'll pay me for that. I know they'll pay me for that. And that's what I'm going out there looking for. So it is very tough. It is very tough, what you touched on, yes.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I mean, you look at a deal and you extract all the value, present it to someone else who's got some money, but you stay in the deal. And that's where you get your value from. So you do all this work, you put in all the sweat, you put in all the resources, you fund it, and because you're networking all the time, you potentially know TJ's got the money, John has the money, Betty has the money. You approach, you get an offer from me, and how you're going to stay into the deal. Maybe it might not fancy you, so you go to John, and John might just give you a higher rate, and you go and do it with John. Simple like that.
Yeah. So you could be taking your money in the form of cash up front, and you take it and you move on. Okay. Right. Or you could be saying, you know what? And I'll give you a very practical example. One of my the guy who sells the retail centers, when he sells a center for a profit, if his profit is 20 million, he's not taking the 20 million cash, because a lot of these guys he's selling to big funds, right? So he'll tell the fund, okay, cool. What you can give me is you can give me 10 million of the 20 million you owe me, but the other 10 million I'll take in the form of shares, so you can pay me dividends every year.
Right.
So, yeah. So, and that's another way to get that passive income. So there's different ways to skin the cat, and most big guys would prefer you do that and not ask them only for cash.
Okay, because you're not the manager, so you don't have the issues of day-to-day work. Someone else is doing that for you, and that's power, because your airtime is freed up. You know, you can do whatever that you want to do. You can go and sit in Mapalengwe for 2 weeks, and life doesn't change.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, cool stuff. Right. So Google is asking a question here. What contracts or legal documents can a deal maker put in place to protect themselves?
No, so when I do deal making, obviously you can put contracts in place now. Those NDAs very rarely work because people still go behind your back and do deals with people and whatever.
Thank
So
you.
you actually,
I thought I was the only one who knows that.
no. Listen, that thing is not worth the paper it's written on, my friend. We just do it because it sounds nice. I signed the NDA, so I'm protected now. No. You're gonna get screwed, my friend. A marriage contract doesn't mean your partner is not gonna cheat. You know what?
Yeah.
Right? So for me, one of the best ways I've figured out to be a deal maker is I get into the offer to purchase. So I'm the guy signing the offer.
Right.
So I control that asset. I control that deal. So if the guy wants to buy it, he needs to buy it from me because now I could remember, and you know this as well. You don't need to control the asset to sell it. You don't need to own it to sell it. You need to control it to sell it. And how do you control the asset? You need to control it via the contract. So you go to a lady like the lady who was on yesterday and you draft a smart contract. I've got a friend, he taught me something called galaxy contracts. And I asked him, what is a galaxy contract? He said, it's a contract that puts me out of the deal when the galaxy falls from the sky.
Okay.
Right? So you secure yourself in that contract with certain clauses that sometimes the guys, it's like they can't get you out of the deal even if they try. So you get yourself into the actual contract, preferably not separate, or just put it. You can put contracts in place, but I don't like that. I prefer being in the deal itself.
Okay, good. You speak of salt money. And I've never known it to be called salt money, and we've all practiced salt money, and people that are coming into the property for the first time, a lot of us, and I'm no difference to this, and I'm sure when you started off back in the days, you were also in the same boat. You're in it to make money, not to lose money. But salt money is almost money that you almost just need to put onto the table and kind of like just be like, this is an investment for something else bigger that's coming through. So, and I want this salt money to be a little bit at a granular level, at the beginner's level, or at a intermediate guy, right? What would you say is salt money for someone? Give me 2 examples of salt money for someone who is starting off. I think one of it is investing in tools like Lightstone, Windit. For me, I think that's salt money, right? That's my one example. Give me one.
I think the first level of salt money to me is you need to invest in your education. It's salt money. I think that's the first one you need to get comfortable with. And guess what? You've engaged in spending salt money your whole life. How do I know this? You went to school. That was salt money. There was no guarantee you're gonna get a good job and become okay. And then for some of us that were even dumber, we went to university and spent even more money on salt money. Why? Because we had no guarantee we were gonna get jobs. Chemical engineer, architect, whatever you became, it was salt money. You had no guarantees. I know people that studied BScs and ended up in the finance world. How does that happen?
Doctors. Okay, some of them are doctors, bro. PhD.
Yes, exactly. Others are PhDs, right? But that is salt money you have to spend. You see, I was always very reluctant to spend money on education. And the truth of the matter is there is no book that you can ever buy that's going to teach you everything. You need to get in the game, but I say get in the game with someone that has been going on the path that you want to go on. And that's where this whole idea for me came out about deal making, because to me, no one was teaching me deal making. I was learning deal making as I was doing deals. And I was like, oh, okay, and I'm learning every day, so you've got some knowledge as well. So, if you're on here, I saw that you guys are running a course. Guys, if you've never invested in property, you need to get onto that M5 Property Addicts mentorship plan, because it's salt money that's going to serve you well. That's the one level. The second level of salt money is where you start getting involved especially in commercial property. One of the first things you sometimes need to spend money on is valuations and property studies, things like Lightstone. Well, Lightstone, look at, it's salt money as well. I don't know if you really need it. Maybe if you know someone that has Lightstone, you don't need it all the time, but the bigger levels of salt money, especially as a developer, is like paying for that market study that's going to cost you 50,000 rand.
Sure.
Paying, if you're getting into commercial property, maybe you need to pay a consultant to help you on a deal, to deal, to solution you on that deal. Because if you've never looked at it, you're going to bump your head continuously. And just because it's salt money doesn't mean you should be running away from it. It's money. And I think let's give it the definition. It's unfortunately money you need to spend to get the result that you want.
Come on. Yeah. Okay,
that's
cool.
Unfortunately the reality.
All right, great. Now, starting off, you started off in property back in the days, like this is almost 20 years. And you have really taken a conscious decision within the last 3 years that I've met you now to scale up your business, right? What took you, why did it take you this long to scale it up?
It's very simple. There's two reasons.
Yeah.
The first reason is I didn't have the end in mind.
Okay.
I didn't know what I want my life to look like, because
Right.
I was chasing what you were chasing. I just read about passive income in a book and I was like, I need passive income, right? Because I just saw myself not having a job. But I wasn't thinking, and I couldn't relate to anything. If you don't know anyone who owns property, you don't know what their life is like.
Come
so
on.
I didn't start with the end in mind. So I was like doing things according to what the books were telling me, and then getting the result that I actually didn't want. Number two is I didn't have that coaching, that mentorship, or that guidance. So now, because of the experience that I've had in commercial property, if I decide that I want to get into, for example, retail property development, I'm going to go to the guys who I know are in retail property, and I'm gonna camp in their circle. So I don't need to pay a mentor, for example, that's in that field. Some mentors might want to be paid, but if I can take them deals, how I get their ear and how I get their interest to listen to me is by taking deals to them and saying, I've got this deal. So yes, that's the sourcing agent part, where it's like, I've got the deal. But I'm not just saying I've got the deal, here's the deal. Because if you give them a deal like that, all they're going to do is give you a finder's fee. That's what sourcing agents would normally get. I'm not there to earn finder's fees. I'm there to say, no, I'm adding more value. I need to add value to this deal, and I'm going to be part of this deal, even if it's 10 or 15%. So lack of coaching and not having the end in mind are the two biggest reasons it took me a long time. Because remember, it took me years to acquire 10 properties. I couldn't acquire them in 2 years, for example, because I didn't know how to source money, number one. Then I moved into franchising, which I got stuck in for 7 years. And this is the thing, guys. This is why having the end in mind, again, example, is so important. Because I didn't know what owning a lot of franchises would be like in terms of my life. And for 7 years, I was in this thing, and now I didn't know how to get out of it. And I'm seeing it with a property associate investor who's got this huge portfolio. And because he's created this monster, he doesn't know how to divest himself from it, because it's there now. So you need to be very careful about what it is you're trying to build. Because once you get clear on what it is you're trying to build, the end goal, and I don't know what, maybe everyone can put what their goals are, but ask yourself, are you chasing the property, or are you chasing the lifestyle that you believe having those properties are going to give you?
Yeah.
Because if you're chasing the lifestyle, then ask yourself, do people who have these properties have the lifestyle that I want? If they don't have the lifestyle, then you need to do something similar to what other people are doing who do have that lifestyle. You need to do what we are doing. So I hope I answered that question. But yeah, lack of coaching and experienced partners is a big thing. So that's why now when I get involved in a filling station, I'm getting involved with a guy who already has 4 filling stations. Right. And this afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're getting onto a conference call with a fuel company, because we're trying to do a deal right now. And I just sit on the Zoom call and I listen most of the time, because he throws out all these things and I'm taking notes.
That's it.
I pretend sometimes I know what he's talking about, but I also have this. I'm like, yeah, I thought about the same thing, man. I thought about the same thing. That's why you learn from the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Aslam, I know that you got some other things that you need to catch to, so I'm gonna end our conversation here. This has been amazing, but we've got something that we're putting together. We say that we're putting an course for commercial that we're going to put together. You've already started doing some work in that space, so we're going to collaborate. It's going to sit on the M5 experience. And people can just come in and buy when they are ready, when they know what they're wanting to do, is it? So good having you around, and thanks for your time, buddy.
No, thanks for the opportunity, guys. I appreciate it. I hope everyone learned something. I hope there was a slight mind shift in how they look at the deals. But thanks for inviting me on. It was when I'm teaching, I'm learning as well. So it reminded me of a few things. And bro, we need to catch up because you guys are doing great things. And I still think there's deals for you and I to do between each other.
For sure. Thanks a lot, Aslam. Take care.
And cheers, man. Bye.
Okay, bye. Wow. We hit it. It's. I'm sorry. I did say that I'm going to go over time, but I couldn't just contain it. And if yeah, I have no words. I am mind blown. Aslam just does something to my property soul, to my property blood. Like right now, I think I need to take one of those tablets to calm me down because blood flow is running around. I'm like thinking, so how can I do it? But this is what it's all about, guys. If you hang out with other people from time to time that are going to sharpen your sword, time to time they're going to sharpen your sword. That's what you need in your circle. Right, it is coming. We are coming to the end of the show for today, the session. My apology, I did say that we were going to go over time. I just wanted to get enough info from Aslam there, and that we've got. So, boom, there we are. I've ended the show. It's been great. God bless. Cheers. Bye.